What's up, everybody? I am James Baney, and I'm here to talk about another episodes of The Bad Batch. That's right, because we got 2 episodes this week, so it's sort of like a mid-season double episode thing, because we are now doing 7 and 8, so 2 of that, 16 episodes, which is what was in last season. It's kind of a formula, but yep, we're getting 2 episodes this week, and I'm going to be talking about both 7 and 8, which are The Clone Conspiracy and Truth and Consequences. Right off the bat, I gotta say, I loved these episodes, and I got a feeling that everybody else did too. These were super strong episodes that had hard prequel vibes. Like, if you're watching this show because you liked the Clone Wars, you're probably gonna like these episodes. They are the ones that I think people are really looking for when it comes to something that moves the needle in the story, something that gives us a bigger picture of what's going on in the galaxy. A lot of the stuff in these 2 episodes explain and set up so much more understanding that we have about the prequels and specifically even the original trilogy on how we got the stormtroopers and how they phased out the clones. You know, it's funny because that's one of the complaints that people had about the prequels, is they were like, it's too much talking and too many politics and stuff. But it's like, we're talking about pension plans and lots of scenes in the Senate debating things back and forth and how notions are denied and seconded and all sorts of this weird stuff. And yet it seems to be the most intriguing thing, especially when you get characters like, well, not only Senator Chichi, who's a huge contributor to this storyline, who we've seen before. We've seen that character grow over the series, every time they come out with a new thing. But also specifically, Senator Pamlo was a neat little surprise, a character from Rogue One showing up early in the story, kind of setting up that they've been around for a very long time. So then when you rewatch Rogue One, you go, whoa, she's in Bad Batch. Like, it all puts together very cool. But I love the way that all the politics in this were the things that were the most interesting about the episode. And not only one time did I really feel like, 1 or 2 maybe times where like the action was what was kind of leading the episode. It really was about the drama, the setup, and the story in these 2. I loved the tension with Rampart. I've always said I thought he was a good villain, but I did not realize he was as big in the galactic scope as what is being presented now. He's got the galaxy thinking this happened and all this. He's kind of the pusher for this new movement, and that makes me think he's a huge player in this whole thing. But the tension of his scenes in the Senate, or specifically like scenes at his desk in his office with Chuchi, like the tension there is just so good. I love it. It's so awesome. And then by the end of that first episode, or episode 7, I should say, the first episode of the 2-part, we have Chuchi, trying to find some information, meeting up with Rex. They're being chased by this bounty hunter who was clearly hired by Rampart. It ends up being a clone. There's a lot going on here. It's very cool. And it's a big setup for when we get into episode 10, which I think is the better of the 2 episodes, specifically for all the reasons that I've been talking about, but not to mention the Bad Batch is in it, right? That's exciting. They are back in the show, and they are going to be a part of the story of how everything is going to move forward, because they have to eventually connect the Bad Batch to how the stormtroopers get incorporated and how the downfall of the clones begin. There's this meeting with Rex, and it's the whole group getting together, figuring out how they're going to do everything. And I really like one thing that happens, which is addressing the fact that they can't testify against Rampart. Because it was something that I was thinking the whole time. Why do we need Slip? Why is there, if there's all this, if there's all these clones that were involved, then why can't we just get say the Bad Batch to testify on behalf, because there's a bunch of them. They could all just show up. But they specifically address they can't do that because they are deserters. And after they said that, I felt like I was almost relieved and like, oh, good, there's not a giant plot hole. They at least addressed the one thing that I've been thinking the whole time. Maybe there are plot holes here and there, but on the surface, I thought, why can't they just show up and say, yes, this did happen. We were shot down, blah, 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 blah. But the fact that they mention they're deserters, no one would believe them. It means that they have to go this extra mile to get the proof, which of course then becomes the plan to get the evidence from Rampart's ship and just expose it, leak it, make it very clear that that is in fact what happened. That's the proof. This is one of those times when I was saying the action sort of led the story. I did like, after they were able to get aboard the ship and get the log of all the video and the proof that they needed, they had to get off that ship. And when the alarms go off, Tech, again, being awesome, comes up with this great plan to use the ship to crash and then get aboard the escape pods and use them to stick out. It was cool. I liked it, and I was very intrigued, especially when you're talking about something as big as one of those like Star Destroyer ships crashing down and causing a big scene. It just, the size of it, the massive entity that they were willing to destroy just to get off. I don't know. It just felt big, literally, but it was fun and exciting, and I enjoyed watching the team get out of that situation. So that was one of the times in these two episodes that the action sort of led the story, the other of which probably being when the bounty hunter is chasing Chuchi through the aisleways and through the back area where it's all smoky, and Rex comes out and gets him and stuff. That was a cool reveal. But for me, this next part is like where the episode and both episodes this week really takes the cake. It's this whole scene. It's this discussion of moving forward the bill for the Stormtrooper program, and then Chuchi saying, no, you blew up the clones. This is all your fault. And he's like, I don't have the proof. And then Omega delivers the proof. And then, Organa goes out there and he says, I've got the proof, and they show it and everybody's shocked. And then the Emperor comes out, and this, I'm telling you, I was like, oh my gosh, when I was watching this, I was like, what is about to happen? And honestly, I didn't expect this to be the case. I didn't see that this is where they were going. That I think, like, in a really broad sense, The Bad Batch to me was a show that was, or could possibly explain the phase out of the clones and the rise of the Stormtroopers. We've kind of had that discussion even in earlier episodes. But there was something about this when the Emperor came up. I didn't think he was going to so effectively play out his plans. It's almost as if he's got 2 or 3 alternate plans that it doesn't really matter which way it goes. You want to prove evidence that we blew up the clones? I've got a storyline to tell you that will totally get me to the goal that I'm trying to do anyway. And he so perfectly executes it to say, wow, I can't, that was very clear evidence. I'm so shocked. Arrest Rampart, get him out of here. He means nothing to me, Goes through that whole process, and then completely twists the whole thing and says, I do have to say, though, it's pretty crazy that these clones just destroyed a base and potentially killed all of these people who were innocent. They just followed orders. That doesn't seem very safe. I was shocked. I was like, in another sentence, in another world, if you want to do something else, you could say the exact same thing. The fact that they have their own free will is a problem, and we need people who are willing to follow orders and do what needs to be done in the moment. That's how we're going to stay safe. But in this instance, that argument doesn't work. He flips the whole thing over and he says, I can't believe these things. Like, he doesn't even really treat them as people. He's just saying that they followed these orders without even any sort of sense of what the right thing to do is. And he just flipped the whole thing. It was so Palpatine. It's quite amazing how well they wrote this. So props to the writers of these episodes and the producers and everybody that went into writing this particular angle of how Palpatine, of course, being the manipulator that he is, turn the whole galaxy against the clones and move it forward into the new era of the Stormtrooper, just like that. Couple things to get to the end of this. Number one, I'm really interested to see where or who the new big bad is going to be now that Rampart's gone. And this sort of makes me feel that season 2 of the Bad Batch might be the last season. I could be wrong on that, but the clones are officially on their way out, and the Stormtrooper program has been initiated. And you don't really have the overlying big bad anymore unless they want to bring in like a Tarkin or something like that. Or I think it's a little late to introduce a new character, but with only, let's say, we've got 2 seasons split into half. So there's only like a quarter left of the series, meaning 8 more episodes. You're pretty much done, and you could kind of wind things down on what's happening with the characters, and that ultimately was the story. This is the story we were telling, but I still feel it's a little bit open for Omega and other stuff, so I'm not totally sold that season 2 is the last season, but the closure on Rampart and him potentially not showing up anymore in the series does make me think that we're maybe nearing the end, because I just don't think this is the beginning of a new setup for a new big bad, but we will see. The other thing I wanted to talk about that was another kind of big reveal in this is sort of splitting up the Bad Batch. Echo is officially now leaving and going with Rex. So I assume then we're going to start to get episodes where we see Echo and Rex together, and then also the Bad Batch over here. And probably by the end of the season, everybody coming together again. I don't think this is something you set up for a 3rd season. But I do really think it's interesting that at this point in the game, they're now telling Echo to leave the Bad Batch. Not that he isn't part of that crew anymore, but at this point in time, you're splitting him up and potentially saying that he has alternate storylines that isn't with this group anymore. And I don't see Echo having like a huge big picture thing. I see him as having a big part in where this story goes. But at this point right now, like if he was leaving at the end of season 2, then I'd be like, oh, they're getting ready to tell more. But since it's the mid-season of season 2, it makes me think that this is only for the rest of this season. Does that make sense? Honestly, there's just so much to talk about. I'm so excited for the conversation to get started officially today, now that everybody has seen the episode. There's so many angles, so many things that just trigger bigger meaning in the Star Wars universe. And it's such a good pair of episodes that will now become that go-to thing that we reference all the time. Well, when Palpatine did this, when Rampart initiated this, and like when Omega provided the information, it downset the clones for the rest of forever. It's just, there's so much to talk about. I want you guys to put comments. If you're one of our patrons, please go to the Bad Batch section, because we're going to be having, you already know if you're one of our patrons, come on. You're going to go to the Bad Batch section. We're going to have a good talk about this. But if you want, if you like what I've said or have any points that you thought was good, please just give a like to the video. That would help. If you're here for the first time and you want to talk more throughout the season, you can subscribe. That'd be good. But guys, come on, leave a comment. Tell me if you like this episode, if you're on the same page as me. I have a hard time believing that somebody would like The Bad Batch, the show, but not like these 2 episodes. So if you're with me, give that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Come on, guys, let's talk Bad Batch. I love it. These were great episodes. I'm here for it. I hope that the rest of the season continues on this path. Again, I get the screeners. I see the episodes before they come out, but I have been watching them as we move along. So I haven't seen any episodes in the future yet. So get excited. I can't wait for next week. I'll see you guys then. I've been James Baney. I'm part of the Resistance broadcast. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next week.